Hello, and welcome to this episode 220 of Frame and Reference. You're about to join a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest, Jason Oldak, DP of Loot Season 3. Enjoy. Yeah, no, I do like that song, drum. I do. I should ask him what Song for Kenny one was, because I've been wondering. It is my internal joke. I'm like, there's another one out there. There's another intro song.
And maybe in what season are we in?
This is going to be the end of 5.
End of 5. So, season 6, maybe there's a change.
Yeah.
Could go back to the first.
Or like, we do like, also now that we're thinking this through, I was like, he probably deleted it. It's probably not a saved. I don't know. Maybe I've got every project I've ever shot still on hard. Like I've just got it.
I do too.
Drive of Theseus,
I have stuff from 2000 on CDs, like scanned and up in my attic that I'll never look at. But
and especially for all the like client work that I tend to do.
Yeah.
At first I kept it because they would always be like, hey, do you have that thing? And now I never get asked that anymore. But part of me does go like, because at first I was only shooting, like 8-bit, not even really log footage. So I could store thousands of hours on like a 10 terabyte drive. And now it's all like raw and shit. So it's, a 24 terabyte drive is like 12 projects.
But it's amazing you have a 24 terabyte drive now.
Oh, dude, I've got, I've got 196. I've got incredible. Like a bunch of, and then I built, I got a new computer for, I usually build my own, but Puget Systems made me this one, and I turned my old one into a server. Because I'm doing all these docs, and obviously there's that whole like, hey, make 2 drives, give them to people on separate planes in case one of them goes down maneuver. And so I was like, well, what if I just, in the hotel, just start uploading to my server at home, because it's VPN, so it's safe. And my director was really excited about that. He's like, you could do that? And I was like, yeah, you guys should actually set up a node at your office so I don't even have to send it to my house. But yeah. How have you been since lessons?
I've been good. Yeah. I mean, work has been, all over the place, like all of us. Lots of changing things in the guards of our industry. But I have been able to work, and I've been thankful for that, and this project that we'll talk about in this podcast, I am very thankful to be a part of, I think you do some of this and this and this, but I think as long as I'm working and I'm, challenging myself, then that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Do you normally like when you're not doing like major projects like that, are you normally doing like commercials, or like what do you do side gigs, or do they?
I would love to do. I unfortunately this industry really typecasts us, for better or for worse. So I always really wanted to get into commercials, maybe more for financial reasons.
Sure.
But I've since film school, I've really just had directors that have been in the narrative, either movie or television world, hoping that one does a crossover where I could do commercials as well, because when we have downtime, it would be a great thing to do. My wife generally does commercials. She's a costume designer. So I feel like, we balance our schedules that way a little better because we have a child as well. So, she has shorter scheduled shoots, and it makes it work for my longer schedules. But yeah, I would love to do commercials. So anybody listening, who is a producer, look at my work.
Yeah. Do you find that a reel is still necessary at your level, or is it all pretty much off the back of your last project?
I have been thinking about that in the last couple of years. I have not done a new reel since maybe 21 or 22.
Still relatively recent.
Yeah. I think what I do now, what I try and do, if I can get the footage from the shows I do, is put together a little montage reel of that show. Because I think I have enough work now that somebody could go watch the show and know what my work is. Right. But if you happen to go on my website and you see, season 3 of Loot and you want to see 4 minutes of it, I'll pick out the best shots because the trailer sometimes doesn't put in what I want them to put in. But yeah, I guess the real thing I don't feel I have to do anymore. I don't know what the answer is. Yeah.
So obviously my reel is just a mishmash of whatever. A buddy of mine was like, hey, this might be 2 separate reels because half of it is like documentary and the other half is like commercial, not like real commercials, but whatever you want to call them. And but in the middle there, I was the only feature I've ever worked on was the last Bruce Willis movie ever made, called Detective Night Independence, and I was the second unit. And I was like, well, that's the only feature of it. I don't have Bruce Willis. I didn't shoot with him, but I was like, I need that. And the Blu-ray wasn't out. I didn't know how to rip Blu-rays yet. So I had to illegally download the movie. But I own it now, so it's fine.
I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean?
I bought the Blu-ray. But and I ripped a higher quality version, and that's in the reel now. But I did think it was funny to your point about like getting footage from,
it's so hard.
They're not going to give it to you.
It's so hard to get. We don't have to go into this conversation, but I feel like if you need to get it, you find a way to get it. I mean, even with still everything, it's like you should be able to easily get it. So you just want to promote your work, you're not trying to sell it on Canal Street, but it is what it is.
That would be a nice, like, if we ever get to a world again where like, well, I don't know about again, but where production companies or producers are, I guess, more friendly or something, where there's just like in the edit, they do cut out like you said, like a little 4-minute, like, all right, so here's the clips you can use. And oh, thanks.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, sometimes I never do this, but sometimes when I'm in color, I think about like, should I just ask the color house right there to like give me some footage? Because I know I'll never be able to get it, but I never do that because just shouldn't,
Well,
it's gray. It's a gray zone.
Well, and also, like I imagine potentially someone like Apple might be more affable to that. But like if you work on like a Marvel show or something, I bet that shit is so locked down. They're like, no, you're not even allowed to look at it.
Oh yeah. You have to sign NDAs just to go into the color suite.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, my friend just did he did season 2 of Daredevil. He was one of the DPs with Hillary. And he was saying that he came out to LA. No, Jeff Waldron is his name. The upcoming season. Yeah. But he said that he came out here to LA just to go to the colors that Marvel uses. Like you can't, it's not a picture shop or Company 3. It's their colorist, I guess, which maybe you talked about with her. I don't know.
Maybe there was one, I was misinformed. I think someone had told me that like the Marvel colorist was like, or Marvel was like really open to like letting different shows use like other projects LUTs or like, but I guess that wasn't. I think I missed
this may also be television. I don't know about their movies, but at least in that show, that's what he was saying.
It is. I'm always fascinated by the higher end color situation because like when Resolve became affordable, just the ability to use power windows like changed the look of all my work. I mean, because I end up coloring my own stuff a lot of times. And I'm just always fascinated by what those higher end colorists are doing. Like so much rotoscoping that like now it's literally 2 clicks and Magic Mask does it for free. And I'm like, instantly. And it's like you can get so granular to the point where I imagine certain DPs are like, that's not what I shot. You just gave them data and they made it look however they wanted.
Well, there's so many conversations that could spawn from what you just said. I mean, the first one is, technology, right? The fact that now somebody on their own could shoot a really great looking project and then take it into their personal color suite and do what they need to do. I don't have any of that, any of those programs, but like what I watched, the colors that I used on Loot, I worked with him on multiple projects and like just showing me some of these like AI quick things now to, like you're talking about rotoscoping, like it tracks the eyeballs.
Yeah.
If you want to bring the eyeballs up just a little bit, I mean, it's just like a click of a, where the shape is, and then it tracks it. There's no rotoscoping anymore. It's pretty incredible. And that obviously that's on a bigger studio, whatever his program is that he's using, but I'm sure it's in a prosumer availability as
It is.
well, right?
It's in result. Oh yeah, no, you're not even off base at all.
Yeah.
Like the refined masks for like faces are all you, like you said, you just click and then it finds the face and tracks it. And if like I said, I got this new like workstation that if you have a high end enough computer, it's not even, because like when I was on my older computer, like even laying in grain would slow it down to the point where I'd have to do all the like fun stuff, all the textural work at the end, like at the very end. Whereas now I can just like work at the speed of inspiration, which is such a huge thing. I think one of my biggest pet peeves in anything, not just film, is having equipment slow you down, because like that, I think I stole the phrase from the Queens of the Stone Age frontman, Josh Homme, the working at the speed of inspiration. Like the second there's friction, you either won't use that thing, or your work suffers because you intended to and won't.
Yes, exactly.
Do you rely on, because I certainly do you rely on the DI to like save time on set? For instance, the thing I was shooting yesterday, like the left side of the frame was like pretty dark, and I just checked the false color, and I was like, I can bring that up. And then sure enough, I get home and one stop up looks even. And I was like, great, didn't even have to light that.
I do. I mean, I try and not talk to my gaffer and key grip too much about what I can do in the final process, because I think it would be, sometimes you see the grips like struggling to put, a row of duvetine just to kind of skirt the light and whatnot. And I think, like anything, I think if you can do a post effect in camera, you do that, because it's easier and it's there, right? But if you don't have the time and you could bring that wall down, sometimes in this show, particularly, we may have tried for a 3/4 wrap. It maybe goes a little flatter than I wanted. And if I can vignette or put a window just on the non-key side, just to kind of have that shape in post, I mean, it's there. We did it a bunch, so it's very useful. I think that, this is another conversation I've been having recently with some people about the whole idea of having a DIT on set also, because what if I didn't have the control? What if I didn't have the control, or I didn't have the availability? Like, what if I went right to another project and I wasn't able to be in the DI suite? Yes, I could look at it, via, they could send me a file and I can give my notes, of course, if I'm on good terms with those producers. But, that DIT also is like, sometimes I have one, sometimes I don't these days, but it's such a great tool to like, set the precedent at the beginning, if setting a look, an initial look even, or, they're not doing power windows, but they're, sort of giving an idea of what everybody's going to see when we go into the DI suite.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But yes, to the longer answer to what you said is yes, of course, I do things like that. Yeah.
I think sort of like maybe a decade ago, it was maybe felt a little more faux pas to like lean on the suite like that. But I think now, especially with like Yedlin's, wealth of information about like what the pipeline can be, I think people are a lot more open to the idea of like the color suite being one step, like a necessary and useful step in the cinematography. It's not just creating a look. It's also, cinematography has one foot firmly in post, versus I think especially older DPs probably feel a little protective of the frame, as they should be. But to ignore the DI is I think,
which, by the way, until about a year ago, with our year and a half ago with our contract, TV cinematographers weren't paid to go into the color suite. So it was on my own time, which is crazy to me. It's like you're photographing a show. The second part of the photography is the finishing. It's like when you go to develop a photograph. You got to go through the whole process.
Yeah.
And the colorist, and I've worked with amazing colorists, are not the cinematographer. So then it's like, if you're not involved, then who is making those decisions? It's crazy. So I'm very thankful our union brokered that deal, because I would go in no matter what. But now at least I'm getting paid for my time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and also to your point about even being allowed, it is like in the DI, you can do, it's one of those things where like you can do anything, and not having the creative voice, i.e. the DP in the room, they can make it look amazing, but what does amazing mean?
Right.
If it wasn't the intent, it's like underexposed for a reason, and they're like, oh, this is underexposed, up 2 stops, and you're like, ah, shit. Like,
right. Which is why, if you could get that DIT in at the beginning, then at least you're like setting what everybody's eyes get used to in the edit process, right? I've had experiences where, not really bad ones. I've had some friends that have some bad DI experiences where the producers just took over, and I have not had to deal with that, thankfully. But it's terrible.
Well, and to your earlier point about, like adding some contrast to faces or whatever, in Resolve, there's now a relight tool where it'll get like a depth map on whatever, and then you can
do we like this or do we not like this?
It's not like basically
like an AI thing.
No, it's just it's a depth map, which, I mean, if you're it depends on how loose your definition of AI is, but it's just instead of a window that is indiscriminate with, it's just a global adjustment in the circle or whatever. The relight tool is using the depth map, and then you can mask out where you want. So in this instance, like a face, you get the depth map where it knows that, the distance from here to here, it knows that this side is naturally shadowed or whatever. And then you just raise the exposure that way, and it looks a lot more photometrically accurate, which is,
I think that's awesome. I've been futzing around in Adobe with Photoshop and Illustrator and even Lightroom. And it's like, even any of those little capabilities that they put into the AI thing now is, especially when you shoot something on an iPhone and it's like everything's in focus, everything's fine, and the things you can do, it's pretty amazing.
Dude, you got
I don't know.
Adobe came out with this app called Indigo. It's a camera app. If you have a more modern iPhone, by that I mean like 15, 16, 17. Indigo basically intercepts the camera signal like at the sensor level, and the photos it takes are phenomenal. Like, it won't, like, I was at a concert, and they had like a backlight. I'll always test like the iPhone camera versus Indigo just to see like if this is like, if I'm making it up in my head. But the iPhone app will, I saw the beaches, and they had the sign in the back that was like a classic like Lexan letters, with like light bulbs behind it. And iPhone camera clipped it to white. They were in this photo, they were red. Indigo kept it. I mean, it looked exactly like it did in person. Like it won't. That's amazing. It's such a fun tool to use, because I love I take this thing around all the time, but this isn't.
What is that thing?
This is a X100V Fujifilm. It's like the built-in lens and all that. Phenomenal tool, but the iPhone's in my pocket all the time, and sometimes you see some great light, and the iPhone does too much post work to like bring it to, or like, I don't even know if you want to call it post, but it processes too aggressively. And Indigo just makes it look like, and Indigo apparently does use some form of machine learning to figure this out, which is like, it's such a weird.
That's very, very cool.
It's very cool. People keep saying that the AI, this is the best, this is the worst it's going to be. They're like, oh, it's only going to get better. This is the worst it's going to be. And I'm like, I used to think that, but then, like anything that's been funded by VC money, it does get worse. Like Uber's a great example. It used to be cheaper than taxis. You didn't tip. It was always like a black card driver. And now it's almost obnoxious to use. And everyone's like, Waymo, no driver, good. But even Waymo is like, Google funded. Is that going to get worse?
Yeah.
So with the billions and billions of dollars the AI companies are wasting to get everyone hooked on it, I'm wondering, is it going to get worse? And then, or like I've heard that ChatGPT 5 is like worse than 4. I don't know the things, but I don't, I think I'm firmly in the position that it is not going to be taking our jobs. The experiment is interesting, but
I agree. I mean, I think there's lots of jumping to extremes with this technology. And when you use the word tech, it's a giant umbrella because it's AI is really affecting every industry, right? Um, I think people are reacting so strongly because of what we kind of saw, at least for me, what I saw during the strikes with how our studios reacted to um, how they seem to care about all of us as workers. It was an eye opener. And so, with any technology, if put in the wrong hands, it could not be great. But do I think that we're all just going to watch AI movies in 5 years? No, I don't believe that. Um, I also think that if you look at the film industry over the years, technology has constantly been changing this industry. Um, uh, and uh, I think that there will be some jobs that are lost or adapt, sort
rotoscope
of
artists.
rotoscope artists, people in post. I think that some people will be affected initially. I mean, the colorist that worked on Loot even talked about this with some of the people in his pipeline. I don't know yet how it's going to affect us on set, but when you were talking about that thing, I seen AI programs where it's like it'll just light it for you, like just shoot somebody flat, and it's like, well, yeah, you could do that, but I don't think everybody's going to do that. I don't know, man.
No, I agree with you. And also, I always, whenever I have these conversations with people who are nervous about it, I'm like, take a step back and look at it from the viewer's perspective, right? If you know any Gen Zers, they're all pivoting to trying to buy old VHS cameras, and they're carrying around like digicams from, that they probably should have just grabbed from their parents, but they're paying $300 on eBay for. It's in a box next to the cables we don't use. I guarantee it. You don't have to go buy one. But they because they grew up in a world that is increasingly ephemeral, they're looking for things that remind them, even if they weren't around for it, of something quote unquote real. We saw that with the kind of mid-level film versus digital debate. Film is real, digital space. And so I agree. Like, no one's going to be like, oh, I want to watch this. Certain people, sure. But the vast, vast majority, 98%, I don't think are going to be like, I want to see what AI made up. They want to see real artists working. I mean, they want to see real light, because I think the audience is smart enough that they can tell when something's been over polished. Like, you'll see people commenting on movies all the time. Letterboxd, like, this is overproduced essentially. It's like they don't want that.
Yeah. And I was gonna make a point about the analog and the new generation. I mean, my daughter's 8 years old. We got her something. I'm not promoting this company, but they're called Tin Can, and they sell these old school phones, right? You pay $80, it plugs into your router, and my daughter is now talking to her friends the way we used to talk to our friends when we were kids. And I don't know how long it'll last, but it's pretty awesome to see. It's
It's like just like a VoIP regular phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
It's just
cool.
a corded phone, and she's not on FaceTime, and I think it's like I like you're saying, I think some of the youth is going to revolt because it's too much AI. It's too much stuff. But then, AI, like we talk about it as this big umbrella, but some of the things we were just talking about are really revolutionary to make our jobs easier, to make things look better and quicker. And so, I don't think it's going to completely take us over.
No, well, and
Not.
no, but I mean, so I was about to say, if you're an indie filmmaker or whatever, using any of these generative AI models for storyboarding, could be great. Then, and I would say, like, yeah, why wouldn't you do that? Of course. Like, if you're not, an expert at drawing, and comping a thing together in Photoshop would take too long. Like, yeah, okay, great. Yep. Although I don't know if you've seen Bong Joon-ho's storyboards, but they are stick figures.
Ah,
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, the fuck there. But then the
when
question,
I go ahead.
I was just going to say that the question is because the thing that becomes iffy is, yeah, you would use that for storyboarding, but the way that the model was created was unethical.
Yeah.
Scraping everyone's data to get the model is not. But
Did you see that ASC? They had like an AI forum. It was about a month or two ago.
I think I was invited to that and I couldn't make it. But I didn't see it.
I watched it on Zoom, and I listened to some of the companies, and they spoke about how you could use storyboarding or presentations for your boards. If you're looking for an interview and whatnot, and it was very interesting. If it's used that way, I think it's great. But like you're saying, you're scraping the internet, you're using all these prompts to find images of people. I don't know, just the legality of it just seems a little shady also. But if you're only using it for boards, then I guess that's fine. If you need to do that,
My friend Michael Cioni, who he founded Light Iron and all that.
Yep.
He's very bullish on, is bullish the right word when you're for it? Anyway,
I'm not sure.
Yeah. On AI, he started a company called Strata, and every time I talk to him, it's like I can't tell what the company does because there's just some new cool thing he's doing. But the one thing that I found incredibly useful, like one of them is like me talking about building my server and doing all that. Like now he has a service that does that without having to configure a certain, like I don't know how to code in Linux, but he handled all that. But there was one thing that he had a few years ago that was really cool, which was you dump all your footage into the Strata platform, and then you can search by idea, basically. Like so if you've got 100 hours of B-roll for a doc, you can type in like girl in red shirt walks to the left, or like bowl of grapes, and it'll find all the clips with that.
That's amazing.
That's super helpful.
So that is
or dialogue. Or you can type out like, blah, blah, blah. Guy says Steve.
That's taking away the assistant editor's job, right?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. But if you're doing something solo and you're, looking through like hours of footage, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There was a thing also, if just back to that ASC thing where like, let's say you had a movie that was shot in Poland and they wanted to dub it or something like, they basically, the actors could speak English. It would like make their lips look like they were saying English as well as Polish. I thought that was pretty incredible if you're doing that for your movie, or if you want to do that.
And it's tough because I'm pretty deaf. I spent a lot of my younger years shooting concerts and never wore ear protection.
I know you know.
And so I read a lot of lips. And if something gets dubbed and the lips now work correctly, because I don't like captions. I know everyone.
I hate captions. I hate it.
Yeah, it's great, but it's like you know what? Captions have taken actors' jobs. The actor's giving you something, and you're just reading the book version of the film.
Absolutely. I like captions when it's a foreign film. I don't like captions when my daughter has it on all the time.
All kids do.
You're not looking at the image. You're looking at the words. Like, just look at the image. You know what they're saying. It's very strange. And sometimes I find my TV automatically is turning it on. Mm-hmm. Like I have to go turn it off. I don't know why. Anyway,
I think TVs are going to have to be the next frontier of technology getting better. Like I know some TVs have a filmmaker mode, but the fact that we still don't have like a standardized, when you had NTSC, that was standardized. Now it's just whatever. Like how many trims did you have to do? I guess it's not going to go to DVD or whatever. So that's.
What do you mean trims? What do you mean by that?
So when I've interviewed people who shot like features that for Marvel or whatever, they say that they have, like, when they get into the grade, there's like 40 versions, one that's HDR, one that's SDR, one that's, a version of 4K, one that, to try to accommodate all these various viewing environments that aren't
right. So usually you'll have more of that with a movie because it'll be seen in different platforms. But with television, you definitely have an HDR and an SDR pass. And we generally color with the HDR, and then he has to sort of make a pass on the SDR based on that. But the color suite is the best place you're going to see that image, because then it goes into, 100 million households, and who knows what their TV is piped like, and and it may have the motion scan on, and I mean it's the brightness is all the way up. You just got to hope that, I don't know. It is a problem. I don't think it'll ever be solved, because then it's, there's so many different television providers, right? So why would they all standardize their TVs? They want to compete with each other, I
Right.
guess. I don't know.
I mean, when you go to a Best Buy, they're all on that really pretty,
And they all look different.
Yeah. At the bar that I was at, the TVs that were in there, I was sitting next to a guy who works at Company 3 in calibration. And
Okay.
and once he mentioned that, I was like, that's cool. And we looked back up at the game, and then we both started going, why are all these TVs different? That one's blue. Why is that one blue? Just immediately became a...
Of all guys for you to be sitting next to, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And it didn't bug him until I brought it up, because he wasn't thinking about work until he was. And then
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, to back to the color grade thing. I was watching, luckily all 3 of your episodes of Luke came out, so I could watch them. Because when the interview was booked, I think it was only one. So there's an amazing consistency throughout the lighting, even like outdoors. And I was wondering, like, how is the key light so obviously with a comedy show, everything's like a kind of an unnatural naturalism, like they're in a plane and it's very well lit,
Yeah.
So like, how do you maintain the consistency between, like, you had an entire episode outdoors that, how much of that are you able to do with, G&E, and how much of that is post? And then also what the key light always seemed to be, the heightened reality thing, but it was always naturalistic at default, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that first episode was entirely outside on a beach or near a beach, in January, we shot it in February when there's minimal light, right? I think the biggest thing for me, just broad strokes at the beginning, was, we had I don't know how old Maya Rudolph is, but let's just say she's probably in her 50s, right? And, the gaffer, his name is Eddie Reed, and we just really wanted to make sure that she looked great, right? Still keeping with story, still trying to create shape on all our actors' faces. What I've always loved about Loot, is that it does have some sort of visual intent. It's not just like, another wacky comedy and it's just super bright. But, when we're in these all sorts of situations where we are dealing with the sun rather than controlling our key source, how do we control that light? And I think with outdoor stuff, as best I can, is it's about scouting and really figuring out where the sun is and which direction to shoot that's going to be advantageous. Our key grip Adam Kaligas is his name. He was nailing it in terms of like sculpting with, especially for exterior work, sculpting with diffusion. But I think it's also about putting the camera in the right place where the sun is, so that it really is acting as our light, and giving us ratio. And, not everything is backlit, but trying to sort of keep that aesthetic if we can, or at least the person that needs the backlight more, shoot that direction, have the other person get the front light. Interiors obviously is easier because you can control it. We didn't really cross shoot that much, so we were always shooting directionally, and I had control. But thank you for saying that. I did want to keep a consistency, especially when we're outside and inside. So
yeah, were you employing, because to your point about like, it's not just a bright, that always seems like such a far more difficult line to toe, to make everything, keyed up a bit and not have it just look flat. When you're allowed to shoot with the Gordon Willis one light bulb maneuver, it's like, that's kind of easy.
Yeah, no, when I never want to have too much light. So, obviously some of our spaces like the jet, it's like by giving that base, that ambient base in the jet, we're sort of filling, but it's all overhead. So you still have to get into the eyes. So we would, bring some small units in here and there to get into the eyelight or shape the face. And then our son's doing, architectural lighting in the background. But yeah, it's always a challenge.
Is there a big old? I'm always fascinated by. You'll see like behind the scenes photo. The one I remember vividly is Vice. I can't remember who shot Vice, but the movie. But there's this photo where
Greg Fraser.
Was that Fraser? Maybe it was. I think maybe I asked him about this, but there's a scene where George W. Bush and Dick Cheney are talking outdoors, and I saw the behind the scenes, and it's just pure neg. I mean, the entire house is negged from the floor to the side. It's all neg, and then there's like a reflector, and I was like, I got to learn more from you, dude. That's crazy.
He's taking away all the light. I've heard Bradford Young when he was shooting would do that as well. Like that was his style. Funny enough, if you go on my Instagram on the 3rd episode of BTS, there's a shot where we were shooting in Santa Anita and Maya is on the stage and she's talking to all these British people. And it's like diffusion. We had this balloon light. Like it looked like we had light everywhere, but there was ratio. It just was like just getting in some of the areas that needed to get in there,
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite of what you just said.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is like, neg diffusion, relatively inexpensive.
Yep.
I was wondering if you could like simplify for me, like how one could achieve a look like Loot without breaking the bank. You're making an indie comedy maybe, and you want something that kind of feels similar to be able to have that much control without, however many thousands of dollars of lighting you were privy to.
I mean, I guess that, because even when we were on the beach, like we would have an 18K burning just in case, like let's say we were using the sun as a backlight. We weren't just using bounce to push back. We probably had a light as well as bounce just to wrap that. But if you're doing it on an indie level, I think you're using the sun to your advantage. Does the person, who needs more of the light, maybe that's where they're more frontal or 3/4, and you diffuse that enough so it feels like a soft wrap, and then the other person's getting the backlight. You're just using the sun as your source. On our show, we had a budget. It never seemed to be enough, but we had enough that we had tools to make outdoors work as well as indoors. I guess that's an answer.
Yeah, but it's specific, just a little bit further. The like office interiors look really good, but not. It's, for certain shows you can tell that it's just like, and these are maybe older shows, but you can tell that it's just environment lighting, and then they'll like wheel in a key, and that's great. But this felt like that, but way more natural. Like I could see the control, and I was just fascinated by like what's going on in that set that you're able to control. Like, are you adding a bunch of light, or is it kind of like all not practicals, but is it like one look and then you wheel in that key?
I mean, I think I always, like anything, what is the architectural lighting of the space? What did our production designer set for us? And what do we have to add to it from there? Because you don't want to just add a key source. And so they're bright and then everybody in the background is kind of, whatever. But if we are adding I would say like our workhorse in the office, just to kind of give a broader, because we have these giant windows on either side.
Right.
So the motivated key, if it's daylight, is coming from one of those. So we generally use the 360 or something like that as like the main source. And then, but if you do just that inside, but like through a T-bone, diffusion, spaced enough away that it like carried, but I wouldn't just use that, because then there would probably be enough of a ratio that, do I have to get into this eye? How do I do that? So, sometimes we would bounce something, we would use aperture lights to bounce into another piece of diffusion. But then it's also about bringing up the background. If you notice a lot of like, let's say we're looking in one direction, you see the windows, we would use our sun source to just have some hot spots and maybe add another interior source to bring some of that up so that it's balance ratio wise. It feels like the daylight's carrying through in both windows. Our source for our actor is next to our camera, but we're also filling in spaces so that it feels that the sun, the ambient sun on the other side of the building is also filling in the space,
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel too much. But it's, it's like, we'll see what our practicals are doing above us. I really never, we did have like scoop lights. So we would turn those on subtly just to kind of get a little ambience over the head. But, generally our stuff was coming from the ground. I don't know. It's all about just like piecing the layers together. Anything in filmmaking, right? It's like you get your key source, but if it's just coming from there, then everything else is it's gonna look lit.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is to not make it look lit.
Yeah, and especially in that, obviously, a set. Is the office a set? Has to be, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The office is a set. Her house, her like bedroom and bathroom and all that stuff. Yeah.
But when you have a set built, obviously it's nice. You're like, the motivation never leaves. It's the and we built it that way.
It's I find over the years with different sets like that I've been on, it's like to try and have an understanding of what time of day it is, just so you're not, because it truly is. It's like, is the sun always on that side? Does it track over us and then it's also on that side? I mean, we kind of took some creative liberty to do that just because we didn't just want to have it come from, say, the south side of our building or whatnot. But, I shot a show where like we discussed what the sun's track was, so that there was a motivation of an understanding of the sun's always coming in from this side of the house,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it can get old.
Yeah. Well, and the big one that I learned in an interview, really, I can't remember. I think it was it Greg again? I don't know. But having to design light for like, I think it was for like VFX. Basically the idea being that like, yes, the sun is whatever, it's 5600, whatever the sun is. But then shadow isn't. So when you're having to redesign a set, it clicked for me like, oh, there needs to be like the ambient needs to be a different color temperature. Like
You're right.
the color contrast. And I don't know why it never occurred to me, but I had that aha moment. I'm like, I don't know anything.
No, especially, we talked about that a lot on the jet because, and I was flying somewhere and I was looking at that just because I was like, I was unsure at first, like, is it really like a different colored ambient, like on the other windows that are the non-sun side? And there really is there's a cooler side to it, and you can get away with a lot more than I thought, but sometimes you just have to see it in reality, and trust your gaffer.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. When I got my color meter, I became such a freak. It was just everything, man. Just sun, shadow, this corner of my room, that, I did all the light bulbs in my house and I wrote an article about it. Because
that's amazing.
Well, I was trying to find what's the best light bulb for household, like for film use. And come to find out because we're all on LED now, obviously, especially in California.
Yeah.
And none of them, the only good one was GE Sun-filled.
Really? What temperature is it?
They have a daylight and a tungsten, and they were both spectrally very accurate.
But is the tungsten 32 or is it 28? Like where?
I think it was 27.
27, yeah. It's got to be lower than 32, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, like LADWP sent out a bunch of LED bulbs to get everyone and they are gross.
I know. Oh, when I used to shoot documentaries, I would go into some people's homes and I'm like, I look at some of the color, the light bulbs that they're using, and I'm like, why do you have that in your house? Like, how is that not bothering you? Like just a fluorescent bluish white light that's in your living room. It's like, oh, that doesn't work for me.
Well, and I'm surprised too.
I'm constantly dimming stuff in our house. My wife, she knows now, but it's like just I don't have the Philips Hue ones yet, but I feel like I need to get those because then I have full control.
See, I haven't tested those. I would be interested to know if the LED engine in those are, like a light ribbon, high quality, or are they just whatever off the shelf LEDs because they have to make, whatever neon red.
Right. Right.
I don't, dude, when I see people like streamers, on like Twitch or whatever, and they've got all the LED ribbon everywhere that's like sort of flickery and of some all weird color. I'm like, your eyes have got to just be shot. Like that cannot be comfortable. Get some good lighting, bro. I did want to ask about the deepfake ad in was the second episode or whatever it is, and
it's the third beginning episode.
Third. Yeah. Did you approach that differently from the look of the show? Did you go into the mindset of like, oh, this is a different ad or a different look?
You know, I asked about that because in episode 2 we do these Super Bowl ads. Later in the season we do this Korean drama. Like we have all these looks that are happening within a show. And I asked them about, you know, specifically our showrunner. I said, what are you wanting to get out of this? Do you want it to feel different? And really what they wanted, the deepfake thing ended up VFX wise being very subtle, but what they wanted was just that it felt like a polished corporate video, you know, like, and she's, you know, she's so great talking into the camera like she does, but, you know, so our director, Rebecca Asher, and I, we, you know, just kind of did this like crane thing at the beginning. So it feels a little like, oh, the production got a jib, you know, and she's like talking into the camera and stuff. I mean, I don't truly know, you know, there's a lot of creative liberties taken because it's like, how did they deep fake the whole group in the video? But it's so funny that I think you just don't care when they start dancing behind her, you know? But I think also what really helped, and this was, I just have to give the costume designer credit because I didn't ask for this, but that red outfit that she's wearing,
punchy.
It's so punchy that it really helps our look that much more. She's amazing, by the way. She's been on the show since season 1. Her costumes, I mean, I'll always tell anybody, you know, cinematographer can only do so much, right? But with what's in front of your camera, whether it's, you know, the production design palettes and the costume design, it's really adds to what we're photographing. And she is constantly putting Maya and other people in amazing outfits. And that red outfit really stood out so much to the intention of that ad, and it pops, right? And our lighting, I think we enhanced the lighting a little more just because of that. I think our key source was a little brighter, like we were talking about before, was a little brighter just to kind of make it feel like it's a video that they're shooting. But yeah, no, I mean, it's I think in the end the subtleness was there in terms of like what we wanted to feel like. We just wanted it to feel like some company came in and was shooting an ad for Wells Foundation, you know, internally. Yeah.
The on any TV show, obviously you have to work fast, you know?
Yeah.
And were there any sort of like, I don't know, workflows or anything like that not only on this show, but just anything that you've learned that like help you move quickly besides just like having a plan, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing I will say that I was very lucky with the schedule of this show. I mean, usually a comedy could be, FX does 4.5 days. Most shows do, which is crazy to me. It's like a mandate, supposedly. I haven't done an FX comedy, but the comedies I have done have all been 5 to 6 days max.
They're like, It's Always Sunny does it in 2 days.
I know. Maybe that's where they sort of modeled it off of. But from first season to second season, I don't know who expressed, I think I know, but let's just say somebody expressed that they needed more time with the shooting schedule. And so that allowed Apple or whomever, they added another day. So we have 7 days an episode, which is really great because it really gives us the time. Now, within those 7 days, we tend to do 10 to 11-hour days because we have that time to really focus and find the look and find the shots, etc. We have 3 cameras all the time. Now, I was shooting it directionally, and if I really felt like our third camera wasn't needed, they would sit down. But they all worked 70 to 85% of the time. And that really helped too. That really pushed it along. And that was Blake McClure pushed for that in season 2 for 3 cameras. And that really does help us with getting our days done, getting what we need, like, you know, not feeling that crunch. Because sometimes we have I think there's 6 principals, if we're in the conference room and we have to shoot all of that, I mean, it's like shooting a dinner scene, it's a lot. So that really helps our schedule, and then for me, just with my experience over the years of shooting is like, it's a puzzle, man. It's like thankfully, I also have 2 hiatus days in between blocks. So I was able to sit down with our directors, properly shot list, you know, look at locations if we haven't looked at it together, and then figure out how we're tackling it. And then for me, it's figuring out the puzzle of how is our coverage going to work for lighting if I do this, this, and this, and then we'll go to this, this, and this, and it's kind of like moving us along and getting everything we need. So it's just me constantly strategizing to, I'm thinking 2 shots ahead of, how to make our day, and get beautiful shots.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever asked anyone this, but it's something that I always think about, which is like whenever I'm asked, like, hey, how long is this going to take to set up? I just make up like, I don't know. I'll just be like, give me 15. I just pick a number, and then I hope that I do it. Like, have you just built a muscle where you know how long a shot will take to set up?
It's so funny you bring that up because any AD that's worked with me, and listen, I do not take, an hour to set something up. I'm quick, but I will never tell an AD 30 minutes. Never use the 3.
Okay.
I generally never. I will always go to at least 20. 20 is like the gold standard.
Okay.
Even if I know it's longer. And I really should, like, at the end of a season, clock with the AD and be like, so where did I really, where was I really?
We need metrics.
It's usually 20 to 25. I don't think I'll ever say 15 unless I truly know it's like a very quick thing. But the 20 is like the thing. Never use the 3. Don't go to the 30 mark unless it truly is like a big turnaround. Like, but by getting that 30, if I say 30 minutes, then I'll express something like, we're going to do this, but we're going to be able to get this, this, and this. And then they'll be like, great, and really what happens with that relationship with the DP and the AD is as you start a show, the AD starts to see like really how quick you are or not. And are you making your day? Because if you're making the day, those times that you present to the AD, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think what does matter is when, some actors I've worked with, they want their 10-minute mark to come out of their trailer. And that's really on Loot. I would get that a lot. It would just be like, Maya wants to know when her 10-minute mark is. So, whether it means they need to prepare whatever they need to do. And I totally respect that. So I try and be accurate about that, where I think we're getting to a place. And sometimes if it's kind of out of my hands where I see our gaffer doing what they're doing, I'll like chime in on them and be like, how realistically, you got 7 minutes? Great. All right. We're at 10 minutes, just to give that little buffer, but yeah, I think in the end, the AD is really trying to figure out, with Lessons in Chemistry, Bree also wanted a timetable of when she had to come back in. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of like, what is going to sound good at the beginning, I mean, I think also as you go through a television show, you start to realize the tools, the team that you're working with, the gaffer I worked with, we had not worked before on the show. So this was a new partnership, new learning experience. And so, we're all kind of figuring out how long it's going to take. And I think by episode 2 or 3, we all get it.
Yeah. That brings up a thought. Obviously there's certain departments that work far more than the DP in terms of like, multiple projects. Sure. Either on this show or recently or whatever, or whenever, great timetable, Ken. Have you ever learned, like, has a gaffer ever taught you something where you're like, I'm taking that from now on?
Absolutely. Oh, it happens all the time. I really pride myself on, being a collaborator with my team. I don't try and pretend like I know everything. I think everybody, as they go through this career, they learn on every job, whether it's things not to do or things to do. And with lighting specifically, I'm always picking up things that, my gaffer actually, he's quite young for how experienced he seems he is, but he's very experienced. He's worked under some really great gaffers himself. And, that experience that he's bringing to me, like, that's awesome. So a big thing that he would do on this job that I will probably carry on to the next is, just this kind of wrapping, we'd be in a small room, we'd be in like an office, right? And it's like we have our key, but we would put up muslin or ultra bounce above the camera and we would bounce the aperture in. And I remember like years ago in film school, Robert Primes was his name. He came in and he did this whole thing with
great filmmaker name, Primes.
He was ASC guy. I don't know if he's still alive. I don't know. But he was the king. We'd have this lighting class where DPs would come in and they would talk about one thing that they loved. And he would do this source port bounce thing. And that's what, and I forgot about it. I haven't used it a lot, but Eddie would do it all the time. And it was really great. It did that. It just gave enough of a wrap. Sometimes it would just give enough for if you have this group shot just to get into the eyes. It was a trick that I feel like great. We had some dark skinned actors on our show. He would also I think it was like the Felix, like the smaller lights, like the Q5s, he would like angle them on the ground or somewhere off just to get like an edge for our darker skinned actor, things like that are great. And then I think also something that I also learn as I go with each show is, technology changes and gaffers. I've noticed certain gaffers, like I'll ask them at the beginning, like, what's your light that you like to use all the time? Because some people like the 360, some like vortexes, some like apertures, Felixes, like the LED lights are constantly changing, right? So just so I understand who they are, what they like, I tell them what I prefer. And then we have this partnership, and a collaboration, I guess, as well. So
yeah, I should start doing that because what I've been doing anytime I'm lucky enough to get a gaffer and not have to do it my damn self is that maybe the like I'm thinking of one example where we did one setup, production liked that setup, so then they sent on the next. I was second unit doing all these interviews all over the world, so it had to be consistent, but I was everywhere with different crews every time. And they would send ostensibly a parts list to the next gaffer of like, all right, so for that one we liked, it was this exact light, and then I'd get there and be like, just fucking, or I'd text them, just whatever, it's light. We're not, and also it's on a blank, so it just needs to be the same quality. It doesn't need to be an RE fixture, whatever you like, just use that.
So sometimes also actually, rather in terms of unit of light, it's more about what I've learned is like, what diffusion do I gravitate towards? I tend to use a lot of grit these days. Sure. And, on lessons, we're using a lot of magic cloth. We used it a little bit on this. But, it's like that quality, what's going in front of the light also creates that feeling also. And
that was the one that I did maintain. It was always quarter grit every time.
I mean, in a way, I think that's more important than is it a vortex or a 360. It's like that quality of the quarter grid is going to give you probably the same feeling.
Yeah. So, it was one of my first interviews on this podcast. It was with Ellen Curris, and she changed my life a little bit because she was talking about how she hates. I'm probably putting words in her mouth, but she was basically saying how much she hates silks and certain on lens diffusion because they have no sensibility. They're just fuzzy. And so she was like, I only use, I think it was a grid or anything that still has directionality to it. And I was like, well, if she's doing that, I'm going to start doing that.
It's interesting how people, I agree with her. I really don't ever put filtration in front of my camera. I did do it on this show for, sort of to set a look of one of our pieces in episode 7, but generally I don't. I just feel like, if you need, unless it's calling for it, like something specific. But yeah, the silk thing is something you like are given in film school, and I feel like I never use that now. I had a friend, he just hates 250, like just won't use 250. I don't know why, but I remember working when I was operating more than DPing, I was like, I would work for him and I'm like, okay, that's an interesting choice. But everybody has their own thing,
Is it written on there? When I bought my first roll of diffusion, when I was just, having to do everything myself, I was putting it on these Kinos that I had, the original ones, not the LEDs. And because is it written on any 251? Yeah.
51. That's
So here's the thing. Because everyone was using 250 as in my educational sphere at the time. I was just being very punk rock about it. I'm like, I'm not getting it. Everyone uses it. I got 251 like it fucking matters. But it's on my window. It's like the diffusion for this setup is just taped to the window.
Isn't 251 is thinner, right? It's like
yeah, by a little bit. I think it's an 8.
Which when I first went to film school and tried to like it was so much of an overload of like light, different types of lights and different numbers of diffusion. I was like, wait, why does 251? Why is that thinner than 250? Like, shouldn't it be more? It didn't make sense. And then there's something called opal, and it doesn't even have a number. Like it's very, 216. It was very confusing at the time.
Yeah, and 216 is thicker.
Thicker, yes.
Thicker,
it's like very thick. And then there's trace and all that stuff. And
I'm glad I don't have to remember any of this anymore. Gaffer can do that. I don't got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I guess, if you're an ultimate control freak, you call for a diffusion, that's that specific.
And there are DPs that do that. And I find in the past, like, I've worked with crews, like you're saying, where you're going around the world, where I've shot stuff in other places, where I've just met them, and you kind of have to feel out who you're working with. If there's somebody that doesn't have a creative quality to give you ideas, if you express, I'm looking for this quality, and they find something that works, then you have to call it out. You have to know what you want.
Yeah.
But I try and, with all of my team, I try and make it feel like a team instead of just telling them what to do, because I have to do 20 different things,
Well, and they're obviously part of the everyone. Like, I was just talking to someone about this, but like everyone likes to A, feel like they contribute, but B, use their creative mind. Like, even if it's just strapping pipe together, like there's some level of
totally
artistry there. And when you're able to, like, on that gig I was just saying, the fun part was every gaffer I found, because like the production company I work with, very like dialed, like they've got networks all over, and so they would always give me like just the most grizzled ass 40-year veteran gaffer on every shoot, and I was just like, this is great, because you're able to just talk creatively, just like, I want it to be like a little sourcey but not too much, and whatever, and he goes, got it, and then it's up and ready. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I agree.
It's fun to meet those people, especially because my young dumbass shows up, and I'm sure they're just like, oh, another 30-year-old DP, cool.
Great. What do you want?
Yeah.
Where do you want it?
Oh, a Sony. Oh, wow. The big one for the longest time was that my joke was always like, it was, what was it, like SpongeBob, where he's like, oh, Squidward's like changing, huh? Oh, or he's getting the same. This is a terrible story. Anyway, it was just everyone, when the Alexa Mini came out, and everyone was just strapping the Cook S4s to it all the time. Like, that was just the, like, everyone that I knew, that was like the thing. Like, if you had that package, you were getting jobs, because somehow that was, I think we didn't have a lot of lenses like we do now. I don't know what the difference was.
Yeah. Do you feel overloaded with the amount of lenses that exist, the options?
No, I think one issue is that because there are so many, and a lot of them are coming from these wonderful Chinese manufacturers, but they are all like built by computers. So there's a lot of sameness. So I think in one way it's frustrating because it's like, which one is the one that I'm trying to get? But on the other hand, it's kind of freeing because you can kind of pick any of them, you know, at a certain level. Because there's like just a level of, you know, you used to have to go to like Sigma to get like really like clean, neutral, sharp, beautiful glass. And now you can get it for something like that for a lot cheaper. And I'm noticing a lot of these, you know, writing for Pro Video Coalition, they send me a lot of lenses to test or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, your Nisi Athenas, your Blazars, even like there's all these random companies that are making interesting lenses that aren't necessarily breaking the mold, but are affordable. So you can get something close, you know, to whatever, you know, Panavision, maybe not that, but like whatever high-end glass that you were trying to get. There's just a lot more, at my level at least, a lot more available stuff. And it doesn't have a ton of character to it necessarily all the time, but, you know, some beautiful fall off bokeh, you know, that's not like crispy. It just kind of melts in the back. You can get that for like $800 a lens now.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. What were you guys shooting loot on?
We shot with Master Primes, which we had, you know, sort of a redesign because the second season they used Supreme Primes. But, you know, I think when we approached the beginning of the season, we started to talk about sort of the direction this story was going to go this season and where Molly was and all this stuff. And sort of came up loosely that changing the look a little bit. So, you know, we kind of did a test with a bunch of different lenses, you know, not trying to like pull too much away from what this show is, because I don't think that was necessary. But I think the Supremes are a little too sharp for my taste. And the Masters, we generally kept them between a 1.3 and a 2. And so there was a nice fall off. Yeah. You know, the shallowness is something that I think looked very nice in certain frames. And it really helped also with faces and, you know, like we were talking about with bokehs and background elements and whatnot. So I loved those lenses. I think I used them on one other show back in the day. Classics. And they look great. And, you know, there was this trend for a little while, even in my own photography, using the large format lenses. And it was nice to go back to Super 35 and, you know, frame for that. And
people strapping like a K35 to like a Venice, you know, it's just like, just kind of, again, it's like the sensibility it can get if you know, shooting wide open or whatever, just get a little mushy.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes with like, depending on what we needed to see, we were between a 2 and 2.8, but nothing ever deeper than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to, I think it was either Chase Hagen or it was Art Adams. They both work at RA Art also.
Yes.
Yes. With me. And he was saying that I think it was Chase, but in any case, you know, the early Alexa, you'd see the log and it would be kind of green. And he was like, no, it's the Master Primes, because everyone was using the Master Primes on the Alexa, but those were built for film. And so whatever the optics were compensating for the film, which was coming out to magenta.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so when you put it on a neutral observer, like a digital sensor, it would push it green.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So they changed the sensor at some point, right?
I think people were not using RE lenses as much, so you would start to see a quote unquote neutral color. But then also that's why the Supremes exist. Supremes were designed for a digital sensor.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of options these days, but I think it's good options. You know.
Yeah. Well, and to the earlier point about all these like random manufacturers popping up, a lot of affordable anamorphics. If you want to shoot anamorphic now, you don't got to spend $20,000 a lens.
Yeah. That's true.
Get a really fun look that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, the hour has flown by.
It has.
I would like to keep you longer, but I have another one. So
No problem.
must go. But it was wonderful seeing you again. And
Yes, Kenny.
let's hope that today's game only goes 9 innings.
I know. I agree.
All right. Yeah, great. Please keep in touch, and I'll see you soon.
Of course, Kenny. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Frame and Reference is an Albot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.